Today I'm here to review The Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 15, titled Us. I did not take any notes from this episode. I took very few notes. So if this review is not that good, you pretty much know why, because I didn't take that much notes from it. But now let's get started. This episode revolves around fate. Now, fate being that Glenn and Maggie finally got reunited. Glenn finally found the signs that Maggie had left behind for him with the zombie blood, which he had marked words with. That was fate. You have brutality that happened in this episode. As you can tell with Joe and his men, when Lynn had lied about that rabbit, when he put it on Daryl. And you can tell how the group literally resorted to brutality on this guy. I mean, beat him up. And at one point they killed him because you saw a arrow through his eye. He's just laying there dead. Also, point three. This episode sets up a conflict. Is setting up the conflict between Rick versus the bandits or the Marauders. But it's definitely point three. It's definitely setting up a conflict. So for Rick versus the Marauders. Now let's get started with the review. I want to talk about this one specific scene that stood out from me. I don't think too much people really realized about this scene as I did. But this scene was very important to me because it finally answered that question what I asked in episode 9. Okay, in that dark tunnel by the railroad track that Glenn and Tara had went into, it's revealed that it's two layers. You got the bottom layer where the railroad track at, you got the top layer of the tunnel. Now, the top layer of the tunnel had collapsed. And it had collapsed on some living human beings that was walking through the tunnel. Now maybe it was from the zombies that was that was on the top layer of the tunnel, and maybe they put a lot of weight on the top layer, then it collapsed on the humans that was walking through the tunnel. I think that would happen, but it was definitely human beings in that tunnel, and once it collapsed, it killed those human beings because Tara said it in the tunnel. She says this blood is still red. So that right there gives you signs, and she said this just happened not too long ago. It also is one Pacific zombie that stood out from me in that scene, and her name is Jeanette. Now, we know Jeanette. She was a Woodbury citizen. We know at the end of season 3, Rick had brought her to the prison. We actually seen Jeanette in episode 8 titled Too Far Gone. We seen now Jeanette is a black female. She had on like a nightgown or a nightgown or something, and she had like a mini fro. She's a black African female, and we seen her escaping the prison, getting on the bus because she was talking to Maggie, and because Maggie asked her what happened to Beth, and she tells Maggie that Beth had went back to go save Judah. And then we see Jeanette get on the bus, and the bus drives off. But in episode 9, when Maggie, Sasha, and Bob go to the bus, you would notice that we didn't see no black person on that bus. But it's obvious because we saw Jeanette get on that bus in episode 8. It got revealed that I saw Jeanette's body in that rubble. You can see her body hanging out. She had like a mini fro. You can see that night robe or that nightgown now. That nightgown, and you can see her hanging out the rocks. And the rocks fell on top of her and it killed her. So that tells you that some of the people that was on the bus that had escaped from the prison had actually got off the bus and decided to leave it and decided to walk on a railroad track. Maybe they seen that sanctuary sign too, and they was heading there, but unfortunately they didn't get to make it because that rubber fell on top of them and killed them. That's what happened. And that's the reason why we didn't see some of those people who was originally on that bus when they left the prison. And we saw most of those people in that rubble, like in all those rocks when it collapsed on them, and they was dead and they was zombified. That's what happened. And also to add, they said on the Talking Dead that cell block D. Now cell block D is at the prison cell. They said cell block D is not far from the railroad track that has the tunnel leading that was the railroad track that's leading into the tunnel that we seen Glenn and terrifying. So that what happened to Jeanette, and I was always wondering it. What happened to Jeanette? Because we never seen her again. And that what happened. Uh the top floor of the tunnel collapsed on had collapsed on some of the people that had got out the bus because some of the people decided to go into the tunnel. So it collapsed on them and killed them. And we seen their bodies zombified in a whole bunch of rocks, with a whole bunch of rocks on top of them. They couldn't move. And like I said, Tara said the blood was red, so it means she said it just happened not too long ago. So I hope that pretty much cleared that statement up. Also in this episode, I want to talk about the Daryl and the Marauders part first in this episode. We see Daryl, we see the Marauders, they finally meet up with each other. And we see how Daryl has probably gave them this idea on how to set barbed wire up and put cans on it to so it can be alarmed when the zombies come, because the barbed wire will stop the zombies, and also the cans will shake and make noise and alarm them about it. And we can see how one of the members ends up killing the zombie, etc., etc. But the next scene is what is important to me, because we see Daryl and we see Lynn and we see them out there in the woods, and Daryl is about to kill a rabbit. And but they also they fire at the rabbit at the same time with their arrows and kill them at the same time. And you hear Lynn saying claimed. So that's a rule that the Marauders have. And Joe revealed this in this episode, because he said to resolve conflict, I have the members say claimed. If they claim it, is theirs. To resolve conflict, because he don't want no conflict within the group itself. And him and Daryl get into a heated argument over the rabbit. And he started to asking Daryl, what type of bitch made you this way? I mean, then he goes on and start talking about little girls. And you can see how Daryl gets very heated about it. And Daryl pulls out his knife. And he was actually about to stab Lynn until Joe came and intervened and stopped him. And this scene had a very, very important symbolism to it, or symbolic meaning to it. Because when I seen Daryl do that, this right here goes to show you how much he dislikes roguish people, how much he dislikes plunderers, how much he dislikes rapists. This right here symbolizes it, because I remember in season 2 when he was talking to Randall, and we know Randall told him about how the people in Randall group, he was telling Daryl, because Daryl was punching him that night, punching him in the face, and so Randall tells Daryl a story. In this story right here, I mean, Daryl completely changed, because when Randall tells him, he says that one night, me and my group was out. We found the guy. He had 2 daughters. In my group, he tried to keep himself out of it, but Daryl knew he was lying. He says that my group took the girl's father, had pretty much held him down so he couldn't move. In my group, and some of my group members had raped his 2 daughters in front of his face. But Randall tried to keep himself out of that mix. But Daryl knew he was a lie, and therefore it became personal. Because when Daryl was going to kill Randall that next night, you would notice he had a knife. That shit was personal. Notice when Lynn was talking about those little girls, Daryl pulled out a knife. That shit was gonna be personal. That shit right there, it makes Daryl sick to hear shit like that. Also, I know some of you saying, well, he was probably going to kill Randall. The reason why he wanted to kill Randall with a gun, because it made noise. Daryl had a crossbow. He could have easily shot Randall in the head with a crossbow. Daryl pulled out a knife. Like I say, that shit was personal. That shit with Lynn, when he put out this knife, that was gonna be personal. Okay, next you have Rick. Remember when Rick had stabbed Thomas in the head with the machete? That shit was personal. When you take a machete, because Rick he actually had his revolver on him. He could have shot Thomas in season 3, but no, the man pulls out a machete and he stabs this man in the head. Do you know what type of shit that is when when you take a blade and you stab another human being in the skull, I mean, that's cutting through bone. Have to, you really have to be swinging. That shit was personal. And you'll notice something else about Daryl. He don't like he don't like plunderers. People who take by force, people who prey on the weak, he don't like it. Because in season 3, the man takes his crossbow and he put it up to his own brother head on the bridge. And he tells Merle, stop. Now when you take your crossbow and you put it up to your blood brother head and you tell him stop, what that tell you? Because Merle was going to rob those people on that bridge for their food and their supplies. And Daryl put that crossbow up to his head and made him stop. So I right there tell you, Daryl don't play that, because when that guy was talking about that rape stuff, the first thing came to his head, okay, I know somebody who's that age. Beth was 17, 18, still don't matter. It's the fact that she probably came up in his mind when he was talking about it. Okay, done with that scene. Next, they end up finding the empty warehouse, and at this point, Joe, like I said, I told you about the rules and how they get along and stuff. Like I say, Joe tells him about you need to claim what you want, and once you claim it, is yours. We don't, and he also says that we have rules. We don't allow people. We don't allow stealing and stuff, because if you steal, you get a beat down, and depending on the situation and how we feeling that day. He ain't want to say this, but he pretty much was hinting that you might get a beat down and you might get killed, because he did state depending on how we feeling that day. So as you can tell, and also when Lynn got killed, that was good for his ass, because remember in episode 11 he killed the guy downstairs. And also how you can tell Lynn killed them, because when Rick was hiding under the bed, you seen blood on Lynn's boots. That shit, just karma came right back on. And he didn't like Daryl. He wanted Daryl dead, and he knew the rules about stealing this stuff. And he also knew the rules about lying. That's the reason why they killed that guy in episode 11 when Rick was hiding in that bed, because he lied about stuff. And as you can tell this episode, that shit got reversed, because Lynn tried to get Daryl killed, because he knew what Joe would do to the group. Well, would do to one of the group members if they was lying or got caught stealing. Got reversed on him. Now he's dead. And Joe said something very, his ideology is just everywhere. I just don't get this guy. He says when men like us follow rules, the world becomes ours. And Daryl says there ain't no rules. And I remember when after they kept talking, and Daryl says, and then Daryl, I mean, once Daryl says there ain't no rules, he says, I think he says, it ain't no us. It ain't no us. Yeah, yeah, it ain't no us. That's what he said too. And then Joe says, you leaving, right? And then Joe says, he says that no. He says no. There sure seems like it's a us, like like it's a us. So yeah, with that. And next about the warehouse scene, we see what happened. Lynn throws the bag, and he throws the rabbit in Daryl's bag, and Joe revealed that he knew Lynn did it the whole time, because he seen Lynn putting half of the rabbit in Daryl's bag, and after that you can see how Lynn tries to blame it on Daryl and says that he was stealing from him to get Daryl hurt. And like I say, Joe realizes that Lynn was he was lying, and he also say that Lynn was lying like a pussy police officer or a pussy cop, that type of junk. And after that, you see Lynn get beat up. And then later on, it's revealed once Daryl gets outside, he see Lynn just sitting there, dead with an arrow in his eye. And you can tell that Daryl didn't have no respect for this guy, because at first he picked up a blanket to throw over his body. He just put it down. because of all that shit that he did, and he don't respect them. Also, final scene with Glenn, Tara, Eugene, Abraham, and Rosita. Okay, in this scene we see them leaving, we see them following the sanctuary sign. And that night we hear Abraham and Tara talking, and Abraham reveals that he know Tara is a lesbian because because he say he seen the way that Tara he seen the way that Tara was looking at Rosita's breast or something like that. Yeah, and he says at first I thought that you referring to Glenn, I thought that you and him was together, and I thought y'all was in love, but then he said I realized y'all wasn't, because I seen you looking at the way I seen you looking at Rosita. And later on that day, the two pretty much split up because at this point, like I say, Eugene is this hope factor right now. And they pretty much, and Abraham pretty much tell Glenn that we can't go through this tunnel. We have a whole bunch of zombies in there. He says, but pretty much you can go, but we can't risk losing Eugene. But prior to that, they was already gonna split up anyway. That's the reason why Glenn had gave Eugene his prison armor, so Eugene couldn't get bit, because like I say, Eugene is the most important person at this time. So they get to the tunnel. Abraham, they split and they make their own ways. But you can tell that Glenn has some type of respect for Abraham because Abraham gave him some food, and Abraham pretty much tells him that no, Glenn tells him that I'm sorry about what happened about punching you. And Abraham he lets it go and he walks off. And also in this episode, you can tell that Glenn respects Tara a lot now, because at first he was using Tara as an asset, well, a valuable asset. But later on, he starts to actually like her. He starts to respect her. That's the reason why when her leg had got stopped, got stuck in those rocks. He literally fought off a whole bunch of zombies just to save her. And also to note, when Glenn had reunited with Maggie, he didn't tell Maggie that Tara was the one with the governor when they came to attack the prison. He kept his mouth closed. You can tell he have so much respect for Tara. And at this point, Tara was only following Glenn. Was only following him. What the only reason she was following Glenn was because she felt guilty about what she did when she was with the governor, aka Brian, when they came to attack the prison. I mean, she also tells him that later on, reveals to him that she was with the governor, and she wanted to say stop, but she didn't say anything, and she felt bad about it. So a lot of stuff got revealed in this episode. Also, the part with Eugene. Now, Eugene, I know Eugene is up to something, because why is Eugene trying his best to buy all this time from not going to Washington, D.C.? Now, all of a sudden, they're in the car, and you can tell that him and Rosita have this brother and sister relationship, but also Eugene like her, but Rosita is not into Eugene. And Eugene also revealed that he was a gamer in this episode, that he actually played video games. That was cool. He was talking about games and stuff. But yeah, their relationship is more like a brother and sister relationship, but she don't like Eugene like that, but Eugene likes her. And Tara also tell Eugene that she's a lesbian, because Eugene was liking on Tara too. She says, I'm a lesbian. I like girls. That's what she says. But back to our saying about Eugene, he's trying to buy all this time from not going to Washington D.C. for some reason. And I know something is up here. Either I ain't gonna even spoil nothing, but something is up here. You wasting all this time. Now you talking about I don't want to go to Washington D.C. Let's go save Glenn and Tara, because he also says, yes, I can save the world, but I also have a conscience too. So he didn't want that sitting on his conscience, but he's trying to buy a lot of time for not going to this place. As much time as possible, if at least. So they end up going back, and you can see when they was in the car, they end up seeing somebody. They end up seeing Glenn, Sasha, Bob, and Maggie. And pretty much at the end of the episode, they all reunite, because when Glenn and Tara is stuck in the tunnel, At first we think they're dead because a whole bunch of zombies is coming towards them. But Glenn, like I say, Sasha, Bob, Maggie, Abraham, Eugene, Rosita, everybody reunites and also comes to save them. Also, to add, we get a cameo appearance from Rick, Michonne, and Carl in this episode. Not too much happened. We just seen Michonne finally opening up and having fun with Carl, and we seen them playing a little game, trying to walk on the railroad track, and Michonne ends up losing the game. Also, at the end of this episode, we see Daryl, of course, and it's revealed that the Marauders is looking for Rick because they say that Rick had killed their buddy Lou, and Tony was the one who seen him. So they follow Rick's tracks leading toward the railroad because also Joe says that he's really not heading to the sanctuary place because who will let guys like me and you in, telling Daryl that. So he's heading to he's looking for Rick. That's how I know the conflict is about to happen. Also in this episode, we finally see the sanctuary / tournaments, and it looked beautiful. And we also see a lot of flowers for some foreshadowing or some symbolic meaning because Daryl actually find a flower and he says claimed. You can see how those flowers, she's been planting flowers in the sanctuary. I don't know if you can trust the sanctuary yet, but it looks very beautiful. And the woman name is Mary. That's her name. We see Glenn, we see Bob, we see Sasha, we see them go to the sanctuary and stuff. So yeah, I can't wait to see they're gonna do with the sanctuary sign. So hope you guys enjoyed my review. Have a nice day. God bless. Peace.